Okay, with that, I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on May 5th. First and foremost, before we get started, I think it's really important that we thank the building department, in particular Diane, who has been really helpful in getting stuff to us in these difficult times. And second, of course, where's Dominic? Is Dominic in?
I'm here.
Not dropped out. Yeah, Dominic, his technical expertise has been extraordinary. To get this many people together on this machine is just absolutely incredible. And last but not least, something very pleasant on these difficult times. Where's Mr. Broadmerkle? Mr. Broadmerkle, will you show your face somewhere along the way?
I can see me. I can't help it if you can't.
Well, you're going to wish you couldn't see me in a second, because actually everybody might not be aware of this, but Mr. Broadmerkle is engaging in marriage this week. He is going to be married to Marlene Medina, and I want to be the first among many to congratulate him.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congrats, Tim. That's great news.
It is very nice, very good news, and he's a fine man, despite the fact that I tease him often, and I'm really, really very, very happy for you, Ken, and to reflect the board's opinion, I'm sure. With that, I'll call the meeting to order, and all members of the planning board are present, all consultants are present, and we get started right away. We do have a little bit of correspondence, and Fran, I guess you'll have this in hand soon enough, right?
Yes.
I have the town board to Nelson, Pope, and Voorhees. I have a notice of intent for lead agency, a couple letters for the Orange County Planning Department. I have a New Windsor seeker for March and for January. DEC to the planning board, a letter, and Babcock to the planning board requesting, I believe, an extension. I believe we have 2 requests for extensions. One for extension to the Van Eerdians, and 2 for Mill Pond subdivision. And I gather we can do a pro forma vote on that. Am I correct, Dominic?
Yes, you may. So you have the Van Heerden subdivision, which is requesting a 6-month subdivision, 6-month extension of their subdivision approval, as well as the Mill Pond subdivision.
Move we grant the extensions.
I second that.
First by Led and a second by Mike, was it?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, we're in good shape. Okay, with that, we can move on to discussion. We have the Cornwall Coffee and Mercantile. Everybody is aware of what that project is. Do we have, where's Kristen? Kristen, are you here?
Yes, here.
Okay, Kristen, do you want to summarize it?
Certainly. So the applicant wishes to place 2 tables and chairs. Of course, I've gone off that letter. 2 tables and chairs, 2 tables and 4 chairs apparently, in front of their existing building on Main Street. They have a diagram, internal floor plan layout, and showing where the public sidewalk meets their property line, showing that the 2 tables can clear that, stay on the private property area and not impinge upon the public sidewalk. The applicant would just like approval, or they would like to know if they can go directly to the building department, or just the planning board wishes to review this application further through the site plan approval process.
That's fine. We have a question, and Dominic, we can refer to you whether or not we can just refer this directly to Gary and not have it fall into the purview of the planning board for subject to review. Led, do you have an opinion on that? Led?
No opinion other than as long as they're securing the umbrellas against windstorms, I'm good with it.
Okay, I don't think I even need to go around to the members. Any member feel that we should allow this just to be a planning board, I'm sorry, a building inspector review?
I would make a motion that we allow that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. That would be the site plan on Route 32, former tennis court now to a basketball court. We've had some discussion on it. Does anyone have anything to say about it?
No.
Hearing none. Ken? Ken, did you want to make a suggestion that we just refer to the
If I
building
could, I'll
department?
make a motion again that we just forward that to the building inspector.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go, moving right along, very nice. Everyone received the minutes, I suspect, for the March 2nd meeting.
Make a motion we accept.
All in favor? Very good. Okay. We have a resolution, the GD Putt resolution. Dominic, do we have a not a significant effect on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm afraid I don't have those materials in front of you right now, but if you would, a motion to adopt the approval resolution for the GD Putt lot line change, and then I'll get that over to you for signature, Neil.
Okay, everybody's aware of that. We've discussed it the last 2 meetings. Does anyone have any questions on it?
We do not.
Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I'll
Make
that
a motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We have a second motion, the Montefiore St. Luke's Hospital. I believe that was assigned. We had some discussion at the last meeting. Does anyone have any further questions on it?
Nope.
Okay. Take a motion, Win.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. That moves us right on to the public hearing. That is marvelous. Okay. We have Classic Home Builders, I believe, on the agenda for public hearing. Am I correct? Yes. Okay, that is a 6-lot subdivision. Is someone here representing them?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Patrick Brady, engineer for the applicant.
Hello, Pat. You want to give a short description of the project?
Sure. I'm just trying to see if I can upload this map. The project is located at 249 Jackson Avenue on the westerly side, approximately 800 feet up from the intersection of Route 94 and Jackson. The property contains, can everybody see the plan?
No.
I cannot.
Apologize.
Yeah, we're not seeing it, but I can pull it up as well if you're having trouble, Pat.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
There we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, you see in the first sheet of the property, which shows the layout, what we're proposing is a 6-lot subdivision on a 20-acre parcel. The property is going to be accessed by a private road. 5 of the lots will have access via the private road. 1 will have frontage on Jackson Avenue.
Jack, can I interrupt you for a second? Because it's a little hard to see. Can you just point out where the existing house is?
I don't
Well,
think.
he's not sharing his screen, so I'm the one that's sharing. So I'm trying to manage the meeting and see everybody. I don't know if you can.
Lot 2?
Lot 2 is where the existing house is?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Let me see if I can. Did it come up now, Dominic?
Yes, Dominic has it marked in blue, I believe. Correct, Dominic?
Well, that's me. But let's see if I stop sharing my screen. Does that give you the ability, Pat? Yes.
Brady, yes.
There we go. Now Pat's sharing his screen.
Working out the bugs. Okay, so each of the lots will be served by individual subsurface sanitary disposal systems and individual wells. We have done soil testing for each of the lots, which were witnessed by the town engineer, McGuire Hauser. All the lots are compliant with the current zoning. We've taken into consideration the slope areas, wetland areas.
No, that's not.
Let me make this a little bigger.
Thank you.
You can see the bulk down here.
No, I don't want to do that. Oh, wait.
Anyway, we do have some wetland disturbance, but it's down about 0.04 of an acre or 2,000 square feet. There is a stream that cuts across the property. The private road does span the stream. However, we are putting in a metal arch which would span the stream so there's no disturbance to the stream during construction or after. We have provided the location of mature trees, and we tried to minimize any of removing any trees. That would be shown on sheet 2 here. You can see the little black dots are the existing significant trees. The cross hatching is the private road. The light shaded area is the wetland area, and the darker shaded area are the steep slopes of the site. So if we come back to the third sheet here, this will be our grading plan, which shows the proposed house, the driveways, septic systems, and the stormwater management systems. We have here a profile of the private road, which is compliant with the town zoning. We've prepared a soil erosion control plan with details and the sanitary disposal design, test hole data, percolation rate, designs for each individual lot. Any questions?
No, I think that's it. Pat, this would be a public hearing, so we can get to the board questions in a moment. But if there's any member of the public wishing to comment or ask a question, Dominic, I'm not sure how one steps forward, but you're welcome to step forward and please state your name and where you live and make your comments and try and restrict them to 3 to 5 minutes if it's possible. But is there any member of the public wishing to make a comment?
So what I'm going to do now is actually unmute everyone. So if anyone has comments on this, if they would identify themselves, we'll try to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, but also everyone has one chance in terms of speaking at once rather than everyone speaking all at the same time. And I would also add that the board did receive written comments, which we could go over in a moment. So
Okay,
at this point, I'm going to unmute everyone. And so if you have comments regarding the Classic Homes Jackson Avenue subdivision, now's your opportunity to speak. Is there anyone here that has comments regarding the Classic Homes Jackson Avenue subdivision? Mr. Chairman, it doesn't sound like there's anyone here that has comments.
okay,
What we did identify in the public hearing notice was the fact that the transcript of this meeting is going to be posted online, and that will be an opportunity for written public comment for up to 10 days following the posting of that transcript.
Okay, thank you. With that, so I'll leave the public hearing open, Dominic.
So my recommendation would be to close the public hearing when you get to it, but at this point, perhaps the best thing to do would be to go through the written comments that you've received already to date. In that way, the board can then discuss them and any other concerns.
Okay.
So anyone who's not presenting or speaking to the board, if you would mute yourself now. We have quite a bit of background noise that's happening.
Okay, Dominic.
Let me pull up the, yeah, and I have it as well. I can share it. So hold on just a moment.
If you would, that'd be great.
Can you see it now? This is an
Yes.
email from Joseph Pepe.
Yes.
So this was a comment sent by email to Diane Hines. And if you want, I can read them to you, or you can see them for yourself.
What is the board's preference? Dominic, I think that people can read. Most people can read. Maybe we should just allow them to read them or quickly, or would they rather that they be read into the record?
We can provide a copy to Fran so that she can have them for her minutes.
This, if I could, this was sent out to us several, or at least a week ago. Is that correct? A long time ago?
Yes. Yes.
And it was,
Yes.
if I remember correctly, rather broad questions,
You get that.
not getting into any details or specificity.
Great.
I think that
Perhaps,
there are a number of questions in here that Pat can probably address, other than number 12, which I don't think is germane.
Yeah, that's fine. I could go through them if the board so wishes.
Pat, I think that you can address them if you would prefer. Board, is your preference to have Pat address the questions now, or would you rather have him address it directly to the owner? Pat, why don't you very quickly go over it if you don't mind? That way it's at least it's on the record.
Yes, well, for item number 1, I guess the question is why was he notified? It's a requirement for public hearing to send out a notice to adjoining property owners. So that's why this gentleman would have received the notification. The property is 20 acres. There's no further intention to create more lots. This will be built out as is. Is this an extension? We had a new road for this subdivision. Well, yes, we're putting in a private road to service 5 of the lots. Environmental testing, there's no environmental testing or new wells to be required on the existing home. The new lots will be, the wells will be required to be tested as per health department requirements. Consideration of traffic, Jackson Avenue is a major thoroughfare for the town. There is sufficient capacity to handle the additional cars. With the new traffic light at 94 in Jackson and the private and the lots exit entering Jackson Avenue off the private road are all controlled access points, so there should be no impact to existing traffic conditions. Number 6, proposed construction schedule. Well, upon approval, the applicant would look to probably start immediately. That could happen maybe this summer, hopefully. I would suspect it would take 6 months to a year to build out the private road and have a number of homes. Plans for the homes, the builder typically builds colonials, market rate homes, 3 to 4 bedroom in size. Classic Home Builders, that's a family-owned local building company. They've done many houses in the towns of New Windsor and Cornwall. On the project sales value of the home, again, as I stated, they would be market value homes, probably, I don't know, in the 350 to 500,000 range. The homes typically build a 3,200 square foot home. The woods in the back, will not be destroyed. There will only be a section taken down for the private road. Try to put the house locations in areas that would minimize the disturbance. If you see the grading sheet when we go back later, you'll see that all the homes are located in existing field area. And number 12, I kind of touched upon, but
Yes, you can't really.
pretty much summarized.
Okay, that's thank you, Pat. Dominic, was there another letter? I do not have one.
No, that was the only one.
All righty. With that, I'll turn it over to the with that, shall I close the public hearing?
My
So
recommendation
moved.
would be to close the public hearing, but also to accept written comments for 10 days after the posting of the transcript.
Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing, accepting written comments for 10 days from the close of the hearing.
I'll make that a formal motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Thank
So
you very much, everyone. Yeah.
procedurally, since this is a new process, Dominic, we'll hold open discussion on the project until the board has had an opportunity to consider said written comments at our next meeting.
That's correct. That's correct. I would not recommend taking any action tonight.
Right,
Very
so
good.
we will not review further. That's fine. We'll wait until we receive public notice. We'll reconsider it at the next meeting, correct?
That's true, but you also have
Okay, with that, public hearing.
you also have received comments from the board's
Sorry?
consultants. You have also received comments from the board's consultants, so you may wish to go through those tonight so that the applicant can also understand what's being stated, and in addition to any other comments that the board itself may have.
Okay, it's fine, then we'll go through them. Okay, with that, Kristen, where are you, Kristen? Okay. You're off my board, Kristen. Oh, there you are, okay.
When I start making noise, I'll be visible.
Listen, your microphone is turned down some. I don't know if you can go into your settings and turn yourself up. It's pretty hard to hear you.
My volume is down?
It's a little hard
Yeah,
to hear.
way down.
I haven't touched it. Is that better?
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. So the applicant has addressed a lot of our concerns from the previous review. I kind of just went through the things that were made and that the existing tree lines, existing mature trees are shown. If you look at, not the sheet I have open, of course, the existing condition sheet.
I, for one, cannot hear or understand what Kristen is saying.
I can't either.
Sorry, I can't hear you either, Kristen.
All right, why don't we switch over to Mark for the time being, and then Kristen, we'll get back to you in a second. Mark?
Okay, comment number 2 just notes 2 items that had previously been brought to the board's attention by Sean, who covered the last review. Sanitary systems have been reviewed and they appear to comply with the State Department of Health requirements as well. Because there is less than 5 acres of disturbance, a full SWIP was not required. Sean has, in fact, reviewed the proposed soil erosion prevention measures, and they're acceptable. Under comment 3, just some adjustments and corrections that Pat's accomplished. Private road has been updated to match the current standards that the town requires relative to the construction of private roads. Pat has added some underground stormwater treatment systems for the various driveways. He's dimensioned the cul-de-sac as requested. So those are the only 3 corrections that we had asked for. Procedurally, he does need to submit a private road completion guarantee. We have received the cost estimate from Pat for the improvements. That'll be referred to the town board for approval of the actual instrument. I'll coordinate that with Dominic. It has been also referred to the town highway superintendent. We're not aware of any written concerns from the highway superintendent. Sean has reviewed it with him, and I'm not aware of any concerns at this point. Also, Pat needs to have the attorney for the applicant submit to Dominic a private road maintenance declaration such that that can be reviewed and accepted by Dominic for the private road. And last but not least, my comment 7, which is a catch-all. If there's any concerns the board still has, just let us know and we can review those prior to the next meeting. So it's in good shape at this point.
Thank you, Mark. Kristen, let's try you one more time.
All right, sorry, can you hear me better?
No,
Not really.
I can't.
No, I don't know what I have been since before. I don't know what the problem is.
Are you
with
on a
the-
computer or an iPad?
on a phone.
It may be because you're on
I'm on
speakerphone.
my cell phone.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I touched that before and it didn't help.
That's
That's
better.
good.
Better.
That doesn't help. Perfect.
There you go.
Much better.
That's better.
No,
No, that's worse.
no. You
Go
got
back.
loud there for a moment.
Kristen, if you turn off your speakerphone, I think you just speak into your phone. You might have it.
I don't think I changed anything from before.
What did you do just a second ago?
This, it's not, is that better?
Much louder.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Stop, but no, I can't hear anything.
You may need a set of headphones
Oh, shit.
or a headset.
We heard that.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I don't know the only way that I can hear you is if I have it on this setting, and the only way that you can hear me is if it's off. That doesn't help with anything.
All right, well, I think I can postpone your comments until perhaps after the review of the next, after the public submissions. Is that reasonable, Dominic?
Yes.
I don't think anybody can
Is that
really hear
better?
Kristen.
That is.
Yes,
That's way better.
Perfect.
Well, I can do that if that's helpful.
That's fine.
Oh, yeah,
That's fine.
definitely.
Way better.
Perfect.
Okay, so sorry about that. On sheet 2, you can see that the applicant has identified the mature trees along the property line and that are along the proposed road. Those that are going to be removed are marked as such. You can see that the majority of them along the property frontage in particular will be preserved. Most of them will stay and be able to keep the frontage along Jackson Avenue as it, for the most part, except for in the area of the proposed road and the proposed driveway as it is today. In terms of
So Kristen, is that,
seeker,
Kristen, that's only a catalog of trees? Is that only a catalog of trees in areas to be disturbed, or is that a catalog of trees on the entire site?
I believe it's in areas that were kind of in question of to be disturbed. So you can see on the plans on sheet 2 and on the existing conditions, you can see the tree line, areas along the rear of the southern end of the property where you can see where the existing tree line. So we don't generally ask applicants to identify every tree in those areas. It's just those areas aren't to be disturbed at all, so they'll remain as is.
Very good, thank you.
No problem. So in terms of seeker, the EAF does identify Indiana bats potentially on the site. The applicant has agreed to the standard mitigation. They've included the map note that says that trees will only be cleared between November 1st and March 31st to avoid the sensitive roosting period. The EAF also identifies a historic site in the vicinity of the project. That is the A. Walsh Stone House that's located on 94. It's a fairly large property. It's directly adjacent to the property site. But there is, even though the property is directly adjacent to the site, there's about 800 feet between the nearest proposed dwelling site on the proposed lot and the historic house itself. There's about 800 feet. And as I just mentioned previously, there's a significant amount of mature vegetation that will remain along the southern boundary of the proposed site that will be in between the two. So we don't believe that there would be any negative impact on the historic home. We do have, there's also an identified potential archaeological potential archaeological sensitivity. And that is not necessarily related to a particular site, but that's just because of the area of Orange County. It checks it as having potential for archaeological sensitivity. The applicant's response in their letter said that the homes are mostly in areas that have been previously cleared by farming, so they don't believe that there'll be any impacts. I find that the board, generally this application, because it doesn't have any required state approvals, it doesn't have to coordinate with SHPO. You don't have to, it's not required to upload materials to SHPO for them to issue a ruling here. So really the board can kind of decide if the conclusion that the applicant draws, that based on previous farming on the site that there aren't going to be any impacts, if they would like to accept that conclusion, or if they would like the applicant to do a little bit more research, or they'd like the applicant to do any more analysis on the site. Otherwise, that's the analysis that they've provided.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Does that cover it?
Yeah, in terms of seeker, those are the basic impact areas that they've gone over. Everything else, really, Mark would need to sign off on well and septic and stormwater, and the adequacy of the turnaround in the cul-de-sac and the width of the cul-de-sac was an issue last month. So I just wanted to make sure that all those issues had been put to bed. Mark can confirm those, and then if that's the case, and the applicant and the board doesn't believe any additional seeker analysis is required, then they can go ahead and they can take action on seeker.
Well, then we'll ask the board. Led? Comments?
Yes.
Where'd Led go? There you are. Okay.
My only question
Len?
is regard, oh, am I unmuted now?
No, we can
Am
hear
I
you.
unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you're unmuted.
Have you heard?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So, Mark, it looks to me like the cul-de-sac is now big enough that you could turn around a piece of equipment up there if you had to respond to an emergency. I think I'm reading 60, 65 feet.
Yes, it meets the town code. It meets the town code now.
Okay, good. The concern that I expressed before about potential increases in runoff to the Presbyterian Church property, which is the historic property, that main draw that heads from north to south from the road, is the drainage that's coming off of that road, because I mean, it's a pretty good sized paved area now, or at least stone area. Is the runoff coming off that road going into that swale, or is it being somehow detained or retained?
If I may, Mark, as part of the town requirements, the side swales along the private road contain riprap, and then there's riprap, oh, I forget what they're called.
You understand what I'm asking, Pat, right?
Yeah, if you look at, I don't know, Dominic can bring the plans back up, but if you go to sheet 5.
Yeah, I can bring those back up. Just give me a moment to pull it up.
Yeah, I've got it right here in front of
There's check dams. You'll see the detail for it on the sheet 3. So yeah, any velocities of runoff will be reduced before they get down to the stream.
Okay. And who's responsible for the maintenance of those drainage structures?
That would be part of the maintenance agreement. Mark brought that to your attention before. I believe the applicant's attorney did send a draft over to Dominic for review.
Okay, as long as our consultants are happy with the arrangement for maintenance of those, because those things always need to be, you know, if the town went in there and said, hey man, you're not maintaining it properly, then there's a maintenance agreement there in place that can allow us to compel maintenance. Is that true?
Pat, I have not received that, or if I received it, it got buried in a bunch of emails telling me about how everyone is with me during this difficult time. So if they would resend it, I'll make sure that I get my review underway. Right.
I will do that. Thank you, Dominic. It would be coming from Dave Donovan's office.
Yeah, the board has traditionally required a maintenance plan for any structures like this that are going to be a permanent part of the solution for limiting runoff to a neighbor's property. So, Dominic, I think you've seen the number of these go by already. So,
yes,
this isn't new territory here. And Kristen, as far as I know, is there anything in the code that requires our consideration of tree removal?
I'm sorry, what was that, Led?
So, you know, this is I wanted to say, Pat, great job getting us a map that has the trees identified on it. That's a great resource for us as planners. And I'm wondering if, Kristen, if there's anything in the code about what we're supposed to be doing with that sheet 2 of 6. I mean, obviously there is some tree removal that's being mandated by the installation of the road.
Yes, so basically what the zoning is not terribly specific. It basically says that the board should determine that the trees, that the significant mature tree removal is as little as possible. And I believe that that's the case. As you can see, the proposed road is sited kind of in between. There's only going to be two trees removed there for the road. And then the driveway kind of, the driveway on lot 1 is going to be is going to split 2 trees as well. I think that the board's job here was really to determine that the least number of mature trees is going to be removed, and if they believe that that a significant amount of trees would be removed, then their next decision would be to ask the applicant to plant additional trees. In this case, what you have is an original stone wall that runs along the property and a lot of brush, as you can see, in addition to the mature trees. You can see that, again, that tree line demarcation. So I would think that the additional trees would probably, would disturb a lot of that underbrush that you have along the road, and it also would probably disturb that stone wall that's there as well. So that's just something that needs to be taken into consideration.
If I might add, Led, if you look at the sheet on the screen, you'll see that we tried to run the private road through the thinnest wooded area. So if you look at the outline of the tree lines, you'll see that we went through the narrowest portion to minimize the disturbance.
Okay, I guess the map's just a little bit, it tricks me a little bit because it looks like the road in the eastern portion of the site, I guess it's only identifying those trees which are in the right of way, not those trees which are not in the right of way. That's my earlier question.
Yeah, well, I've shown the full right of way, which is 50 feet. Your road's 26 with your shoulder, get you up to about 29, 30. So there's still another 10 feet that was set for grading purposes. But the roadway where it's coming in off of Jackson has been done to maintain sight distance. That's also where the existing driveway is. If you see, a couple of the trees when you first come in are pine trees. Not that they're insignificant, but those pine trees at their age are probably at their lifespan anyway. And then, we have a couple other trees which are kind of unavoidable.
Okay, so it sounds like we're doing what's required under zoning then, Kristen, is that correct?
Yes, and we took every effort to maintain the trees.
Is that Kristen?
Yes, I would agree that it does appear that there's effort to either avoid the trees or to take kind of the path of least number of mature tree clearing here. And like I said, I think that asking the applicant to plant additional street trees is probably going to do more harm than good.
Okay, that's all the questions I had, Neil.
Thank you, Ed. Mike?
I got nothing.
Okay, Bill? Bill?
He's muted for some reason.
Dominic?
Hold on, let me see if I can unmute. Yep, there we go.
Oh, Bill?
No
Bill?
questions. No
Okay.
questions.
Okay, Win?
Yeah, I just wanted to get back on the record and confirm with both Kristen and Mark that they're comfortable that there's not going to be a significant amount of moisture added to the church property.
No, obviously the stormwater volume is the stormwater volume. It's the intensity of the flow, and Pat has addressed the intensity with the improvements he's added onto the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mary Beth.
All set.
All set? Okay, and Mr. Broadmerkle?
I'm happy.
He's happy, okay. Well, with that, we won't have any consideration of this until the closing of the public hearing, the submission of the written notification of people with concerns. So, Dominic, I suspect we could possibly consider having a resolution prepared for next month in the event that there are no issues. Am I correct?
Yes, that would be fine. And also just want to clarify that one of the issues that Kristen raised was in connection with the potential archaeological resources here. You had received a response from the applicant, and the issue was whether or not that was, in particular, was satisfactory for the board. I take it that it was, but I just want to make sure that we're confirming that and not going to have an issue that pops up that requires additional, resources from the applicant to happen at a later date.
Dominic, if I could ask a question. The statement was made that this property was used as farming, and hence the probability of any archaeological important items being found is negligible. Is that a normal accepted statement?
Yeah, yes, and as Kristen mentioned, you know that significant portions of Orange County often get counted as archaeologically sensitive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a high probability that there's significant resources, archaeological resources on this site. And so you have a
Well,
statement from the
Statement
applicant.
makes complete sense. I just never heard it before.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Okay.
It's just
Okay,
discretionary
with
with
that,
the
Dominic,
board.
oh,
Yeah, it's just discretionary with the board since you are seeker lead agency for this project that you're satisfied with the information and the response that you've been given.
thank you, Dominic. Dominic, with that, maybe you could prepare a resolution and do we have whatever necessary paperwork for next month, then we can vote on it after considering any written submissions.
Yes, I'll coordinate with Kristen and Mark to make sure that those are prepared for the next meeting.
Sure,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay, with that, we can move on to the next project. That would be the Vales Gate Business Center. Is there someone here to address it?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you and the board and Dominic for providing the opportunity for the project to continue in this forum. And have a good evening and stay safe and healthy. Take care.
Thank you, Pat. That's very gracious. Okay.
Take care, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Bye-bye.
With that, we'll move on. Is there anyone from the Vales Gate Business Center with us?
Yeah, Tom Depew.
Hi, Tom. You want to do a little overview and then we can move on to a discussion?
Yes. This project had been in front of the board and we had gotten caught up in the moratorium. We were proposing a 74,000 square foot building on the property. There was already 2 existing buildings on site. One was 49,000 and the other I think was about 330,000. So we had been in front of the board. In fact, we were in front of both boards. About 3/4 of the buildings in the Windsor, quarters in Cornwall. We had gotten our approvals from the Windsor, and then we were coming back to the board to give final approval, and we had gotten caught up in the moratorium. So basically, we're back in front of the board. The building, like I said, 74,000 square feet, and we have a new access road into it, and we have the appropriate stormwater management, water quality, and we also did some green infrastructure on the site. So I think we had met all the criteria at the time.
Okay, Kristen? Where's Kristen? Oh,
I'm
here
here.
you are. Okay, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so basically Leslie did this review. Obviously, this majority of this review was done over a year ago before the town was in moratorium. So basically what I did was just to review Leslie's previous comments. And it appears to me that we addressed all of Leslie's previous comments. Seeker, as you saw in the correspondence, Seeker was done by the town of New Windsor for this application. They were lead agency on Seeker. So the town of Windsor completed Seeker. And the Orange County completed its GML review. So no other required actions in that regard, and I have no additional comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark?
Yes, this project goes back quite a long period of time, as Tom would attest to. It goes back as a 2011 application. There was a lot of coordination between the two towns. Ultimately, the two last items that had to be dealt with were basically the parking issue and some on-site water distribution problems for fire protection. The fire inspectors from both the town of Cornwall and town of New Windsor had a joint effort to work with the applicant to get those issues resolved. That was a safety issue, so both boards put a very high value on getting that resolved, and I appreciate Tom's help as well, getting the applicant on target. At this point, everything has been completed as far as I'm aware. As indicated, Leslie and I had worked out kind of an overlap in the parking since the codes weren't quite identical, and the property is split between municipalities. So it was not challenging, but it was we took a fair approach, I believe, in getting the correct number of parking spaces on site. That said, they were hung up in the moratorium. Luckily, they are now clear of New Windsor, who is in their own moratorium now, but they do have an active approval from New Windsor, and they're just back looking for Cornwall now to give their vote of approval, which I would recommend.
Okay, with that, we'll go to Dominic. Any comments?
No comments at this time.
Okay, board members, Led.
Oh, great job getting the fire prevention taken care of there, Mark. Thanks.
Mark, Mike.
Yeah, same comment. Fire protection was my concern way back when. So that's addressed. Thank you.
Okay, Bill.
No comments. It's been a long time. It's about ready to go, I guess.
Okay, Win.
No comments.
Mary Beth.
It was before my time, but I'm glad to see we're moving forward.
Okay, and Mr. Broadmerkle.
I'm good.
Very good. Okay, with that, Dominic, do we require a resolution?
Yes, this will require a resolution. I can prepare it for the board's next meeting.
Okay, we do not have a requirement for a negative deck, am I correct?
This was a coordinated review where New Windsor was lead agency.
Okay, shall we wait until the next meeting to vote on it, or shall we vote on it and then just have you prepare the resolution and allow me to sign it?
Whatever the board's preference, I can certainly handle it either way.
I'd recommend we have the resolution prepared.
Second.
Okay. You're suggesting, Mike, that we just wait until the next meeting and prepare the resolution and vote on it at the next meeting?
I think we can vote on it now, Neil, and
Okay.
instruct you to sign it after Dominic's prepared it. Dominic, there's nothing unusual or anything about this particular action.
No, there's no unusual conditions connected with this particular application.
Right, so I move that the board authorize the chairman to sign the resolution as prepared by Dominic.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go. Thank you, board. Okay, we're all set with that.
Okay,
Move on
thank
to
you.
the next person. Okay, with that, we have the Hudson Valley Pickleball Park. Is anyone here to speak to that?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Okay.
Okay, you're on the floor.
I have, I'll give you a briefing on as to where we are.
Sure.
And Dominic, do you want to put the plan up on the screen, or do you want me to do it? How do you wanna go?
I've given you the ability to do it, whatever you're more comfortable,
okay.
you know.
I hope I do this as well as Pat, or I'll never hear the end of it. All right.
All right, you got it.
So we've developed we've advanced the site plan that we brought before the board for a sketch a number of weeks ago. 10-acre piece of property. What we did was we had my ecologist go out and flag the wetlands along the border of the stream, the border of the lake, and the rear of the property. Let's see. We have the zoning is in place, of course. The LS zoning is in place. There's a number of buildings on the site. The residence over on the western side of the property is going to remain. That will be turned into an office space for the property. The barn and the former retail building will both be converted into restaurants. The barn building and the former retail building. The A-frame building is on this plan is demolished. It was in this area. That one was torn down. And there's a number of greenhouse greenhouse. I gotta just take 1 second. Would you? I just got a technical difficulty. I'll be right there. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yep, you're back, Andrew.
I think we've all been stuck in these houses for too long.
That's pretty clear.
Very difficult. So, anyway. All right.
Hey, Andrew, just letting you know that Rich and Jean are here also.
Thank you.
Andrew, if I could ask a quick question, you were
Yeah.
referring to 2 restaurants now? Two
That's what
separate
was
restaurants?
proposed, yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Let me see if I can get this thing to go down. Completely lost my ability to move this. There we go. Yeah, I'll take you through the site. The existing office, the existing residence becomes an office. The barn becomes the restaurant. The A-frame came down. That wasn't suitable for being reused. So this is the new retail building. And then there's a second takeout restaurant here. This is the existing greenhouse that we want to maintain. The indoor courts, the locker room, bath area, and gymnasium. I gave the hours of operation for the indoor courts, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Outdoor courts, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday. The restaurants would be 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. I did take a look to see what the Cumberland Farm does for hours. They'd start at 5 a.m. and they close at 12 midnight. The retail space would be 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and the office would be 9 to 5.
Okay, well, Andrew, do you have anything else that you wanted to say?
You know what? We really did very minimal stormwater on this site. The reason is there was so much impervious on this site to start with. What we were going to do was take up a lot of the impervious areas and make them into green areas. There's a large grass area over here. There's a large area that was compacted gravel in this area. That's all going to be removed and made into a grass area. So there was quite a few areas on the site that were going to be made more pervious than they are today. That really helped us with the stormwater. There's 3 wells on the site. We've made communications with the health department. Let me see, I had some other correspondence. So we had the correspondence from Orange County Planning. Also had a letter to the town board requesting entrance into the Beaver Dam Sewer District. We have a letter from DEC, and I could go through all of these, the health department and also SHPO. We had some communication back and forth. Mr. Chairman, my traffic engineer is here also to answer any questions, and also my landscape architect who did the lighting plan and the landscaping plan.
Okay, terrific. Then we'll go for the review, and if there's any questions, we can go from there. Okay, Kristen, do you have any comments? Oh, there you are. Okay.
I'm good?
Yep, you're good.
Certainly. So, I think that the applicant did respond to a lot of our comments.
I can't hear her. I can't hear her.
Okay, Kristen, could you speak into your phone again? Or
Sure, I guess we're still gonna.
okay, are we back? Kristen, are you there? Kristen is muted for some reason.
Yeah, just hold on.
Okay, we're holding.
Actually, I think she dropped off the call for the meeting. So
Okay, Mark, I'll switch over to you until we get Kristen
Oh,
back.
here.
no,
Oh,
no,
okay,
she
there she
is.
is.
Yep, she's back.
Okay,
She's been muted again.
Kristen?
Yes, hello?
Okay, there you go.
Better.
You're on.
No, I don't. Now I have no idea what the difference is between good volume and not good volume.
This is good.
Okay, so as Andrew said, they made a lot of the changes that we had requested. They added a parking calculation table demonstrating that the project can meet the zoning requirements for each of the proposed uses. There are some minor, the applicants delineated the wetlands on the site. There's some minor disturbance just for construction purposes only. It falls underneath the nationwide permit threshold at 1/10 of an acre. The applicants provided landscaping and lighting plans. Lighting is acceptable around the periphery of the site. It's down at 0.1 or less all the way around on a lot of the property lines that have residential neighbors. But we had a little bit of concern around some of the interior buildings. There's some really low levels. It doesn't appear that there's anything building mounted on the restaurants. That might be because it's an existing building. But I think that that's probably something that the applicant should look at. It's a pretty simple fix. It's just something that we noted for safety purposes. If people are going to be in and out of there, if the restaurant's going to be open until 11 o'clock at night, you should probably look at some safety lighting. Signage, the applicant showed the signage, the directional signage for circulation through the site, but they don't show any details of the pylon sign yet, or whatever the sign to the site. They show a location, but they need to show the details of that. For landscaping, the applicant kind of beefed up the landscaping plan quite a bit. They added evergreen trees and ornamentals and bushes around the site, interior to the parking area and along the periphery. They meet the town zoning code requirement for landscaping, which is an interesting calculation, but they meet it nonetheless for parking required in and around parking areas. But it's, a lot of that is board discretion. So I think the planning board should probably take a look at the landscaping plan. You're more familiar with the area and what, you want to see there along the frontage and between the site and the neighbors. So you should take a look at that. Otherwise, just a couple of details. There's a bike rack detail on the last sheet. There's not shown on the plan. I think that's probably a good idea to show some bicycle racks with this particular type of use. The hours of operation is another thing that I think that the planning board needs to take a look at. The applicant included the hours of operation in their cover letter. There's a range, but I think the important ones are 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the outdoor courts, and the latest is the 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. for the restaurants on the weekends. There's no zoning that regulates, I don't believe, unless there's, except by regular noise ordinance, that regulates the hours of operation. So I think that that's probably, again, really more in terms of noise impacts. The planning board should take a look at that to see if in conjunction with the landscaping, that would be the mitigation for that. The board should take a look at that to see if they're okay with the landscaping versus the hours of operation, and the lighting is kind of all needs to be reviewed all as one thought. Whether the mitigation that's been provided is adequate or if it needs to be beefed up more. In terms of seeker, again, the site is flagged as sensitive for archaeology. The applicant, Andrew, just said that they did have some coordination with SHPO, so he can maybe weigh in on that or submit the letter and we can take a look at it. They've got Indiana bats, rattlesnakes, and bald eagles. They're going to need to look into that. We're going to need a little bit more information on what's going on the site to determine if there's going to be any potential impacts there. And we did receive the GML review, and the applicant tonight is looking to set up the public hearing, and we believe the plans are now adequate.
Or not, did you say not adequate, Kristen?
No, adequate at this time. With the new plans
good.
that they've provided, we believe that they are now adequate.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay, great, great. Okay, thank you. Mark? He's muted.
He is. Hold on just a second. Sorry, we were getting a lot of... Mark, can you hear us?
I can.
And we
Under
can-
my comment one, I just noted some of the items that had carried forward from comments at the prior review. They have identified that the former greenhouse structure will be used for indoor seating and it's covered. That's something that Andrew had gone over as part of his presentation. Relative to parking, we had asked that they clarify with a specific calculation for the site. They have done so. They're indicating that a total of 130 spaces are required. They're providing 140. If you look at the plan, there's several parking spaces behind a fenced area that I believe obstructs access to some during when the gate might be closed. But nonetheless, the provided spaces that are forward of any fencing all are adequate to meet the required spaces for the site. Handicap parking is adequate based on the code. Comment 2 just notes some of the outside agency reviews that are ongoing. Department of Health determination and review, which is referenced in their submittal for the on-site water facilities. As Andrew indicated, the town board has been brought into the discussion relative to the sewer connection, either as an extension to the district or an outside user for the district. And third, of course, DOT will be involved because of its access to Route 94. I don't see any benefit in going through every single item under comment 3, which while I was going through the plans, I took the time to drill down and provide as many detailed comments as I could to help the applicant out. One item that you may want to discuss is the applicability of having dumpsters with a little more stability. They're showing fenced, chain link fence dumpsters. We historically like to get something masonry so they last a longer period of time before they're damaged, and then have appropriate bollards to protect them. Landscaping, Kristen spoke on. Lighting, there was a couple weak areas as it might be on the plan. Some I believe can be corrected by fixtures on utility poles adjoining access points. Andrew can look at that with his staff. There was no lighting, interestingly, for the outdoor pickleball courts. I don't know if that was by intent. As well, there was no lighting for the walkways in that area, and I thought that was more of a safety issue going from building to building. You may want to look at some low-level bollard lighting. I've provided a standard lighting note. We have received the traffic evaluation. I see Pete Rosillo is with us tonight. You may want to have him touch base on this either tonight or at a subsequent meeting. But in a nutshell, I really don't anticipate any capacity issue given the fact we're on Route 94. It becomes more, in my mind, a matter of site access points, site distance not obstructing sight lines, and that's really just part of the detailed site plan review. But I really don't anticipate any issues relative to the traffic evaluation, but that review is ongoing. Sean has been working with Andrew relative to the stormwater. We have received a SWIP as requested. We'll have those comments finished up, I will believe, soon. But again, they've been coordinating. I anticipate that that's going to be any significant issue. And my last comment, similar to Kristen, I believe the plans are in good shape for a public hearing. There's plenty of information here so that the public will have an opportunity to understand what's proposed and provide comment.
Terrific, Mark. Thank you very much. Dominic, do you have any comments?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, with that, we can go around the board. Led?
Andrew, my understanding that one of the restaurants is a takeout only restaurant?
Rich or Jean or Mary Beth, are you on? Can you speak to that? Is that only takeout? I don't know that that's the limitation. Mary Beth, could you, there you go.
The question was, no, it's not going to be only takeout, but it's going to be very limited seating.
Okay, I just thought I saw a note somewhere about it being takeout only. Maybe I read it wrong. I just want to make sure that the
How
plans
many
don't.
seats are you talking about?
Well, the building is very small. It's only, the first floor, I believe, in that building is 1,200 or 1,300 square feet. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be, it's so small. It'll just have maybe a dozen to 20 seats at the most, if you can fit that, but it's mostly for takeout. We anticipated to change that because the restaurant's gonna take a while to get up, and we wanted to have something there for, a lot of people come by for lunch and pass. In passing, we have a lot of commuters coming back. They won't be staying at the facility and gonna take things to go. And we didn't want to jam up the regular restaurant with takeout orders.
And who was that who was just speaking?
This is Richard.
Richard is one of the partners.
Okay, yep.
I have the total estimated seating for the restaurants is 123. Next time I'll break it up so you can see how many seats are in each.
The larger restaurant's about 90, and the front building should be about 20. Andrew, it should be about no more than 110 in combined between both buildings.
And just, for our stenographer's sake, if we could all just speak one at a time, it would be a little helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
Okay. I'll let you share any other questions.
No, so the reason I was asking that question is because it has to do with the parking calculation. But I think the parking calculation is by square footage of total restaurant space, regardless of takeout, right, Mark?
It's per seat.
Seat.
It's on seating based calculation.
Okay, so are we carrying 24 seats for that restaurant that was maybe takeout only?
We're carrying 123 seats for what the applicant has just said was going to be probably about 110 seats total.
So they're showing.
I have
they're providing for more seats than are really going to be required is what's coming down to.
Okay, that I was just having a little trouble sorting that out from the plan. That's all.
There's a parking calculation on sheet 1 to the right, Led, that'll give you the breakdown, and that does have the 123 seats, 1 per 3 seats.
Okay, great. The second thing I wanted to just say is that as we head into the public hearing here, sometimes areas which are in our commercial zones, I believe that this is in our local shopping district.
That's right.
And as a board member, I'm going to be very supportive of local shopping districts supporting local shopping uses. So sometimes we'll get adjacent residents who object to non-residential uses when they've gotten used to a non-residential use over time in a district of this kind. But in case anybody out there who's thinking about going to the public hearing is reading these minutes, I just want them to be aware that the intention of this property was always as a local shopping district. And so when we talk about limiting restaurant hours, I worry a little bit because I want to make sure that we provide sufficient operating hours in the local shopping district that the restaurants can be successful inside that district. To me, a much worse outcome than operating for a couple hours more a day is an abandoned site. And so I want to make sure that that I just wanted to get it out there on the table that when I think about local shopping districts, I want to see them be successful for that intent, local shopping.
Very good, Len.
Philosophy for now.
Comments too. Yeah. Okay, was that your last comment, Len? Oh, he's muted. Okay,
That's
Mike.
That's all I got.
Okay, thanks. Mike, are you around?
Yep, I'm here. I have nothing.
Okay, Bill?
No, nothing now. Thank you.
Win?
I just want to commend the applicants for their perseverance through the entire moratorium. I'm thrilled that this project is coming back in front of us.
I would agree with that. Mary Beth?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, and Mr. Brodmerkel, sir.
Agree with Led and my esteemed colleague on my left there. I think this is a good project and it's coming along nicely, coordinated.
Yes, it is. I'll take the moment to also commend the applicants. I think they've done an extraordinary job in you're persevering. And I think with that, I could take a motion to schedule a public hearing at the next meeting if that's possible.
So moved.
Oh, that was quite
Second.
unanimous. Okay, with that, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll schedule a public hearing at the next meeting and we'll try and expedite the movement of this project. Great job, everyone. Okay. with
Thank
that,
you very much, everybody.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, okay, Jeannie. Okay, next we have Storm King Art Center. Is somebody here? Who do we have?
Yes, we have a number of people here. I'm going to unmute everyone, and because I think what we have left is a large contingent from Storm King.
Okay, hello, Storm King. How are you doing? Okay, here we go. Is there someone who's individually able to speak to Amy? Anybody who's going to speak to the project? Okay.
Thank you, Neil. So I'm Amy Weiser. I'm the Deputy Director for Strategic Planning and Projects. And I want to thank you guys for meeting with us, especially given this technology. We are excited to kick off the process of working with you for the approval of our site plan and a special permit. I want to recognize that I'm joined today on the staff side with John Stern, our president, David Collins, our deputy director and chief curator, and several other colleagues, including Rachel Coker, Cortez Crosby, Blaise Marshall, Mike Seaman. So almost literally everyone else on this call is related to us. And I want to ask the consultant team to just speak up so you know who they are as well. Valerie.
Hello, I'm Valerie Menastra from Nelson Pope and Voorhees.
Is Adriana on?
Yes, I'm also on. I'm Adriana Beltrani. I'm also with Nelson Pope and Voorhees.
Paul?
Paul Vandergrint, studio director at WXY, an architecture firm based in New York.
Mike?
Mike Tucker from VHB. We're the civil engineer, traffic, environmental consultants.
Very good.
Ron. And we also have Ron Kosser, who's very quiet right now.
See Ron
so
Kosser here.
I am going to briefly speak to the vision of the project. Valerie is then going to walk you through the approvals and our intent for phasing. Paul will talk to you about the plans, and he can remarkably do that very quickly. Mike will describe the civil plans and the traffic studies, and then all of us are here to answer your questions. So I know you know Storm King very well, and I just want to acknowledge that we're in our 60th year here. And while I'm a relatively new staff member, I joined the staff for this project in early 2018. I am a long-term visitor to the Art Center since at least 1997, because I have photographs from then. And so I've been eating lunch in Cornwall for a number of years. And I tell that just to sort of say that I think it bridges what Storm King is. It's both a national and international destination, and it's a resource for the local community. So I said my task is the vision. And simply put, what we're trying to do here is make Storm King more Storm King. And what we mean by that is you have an extraordinary experience at Storm King of art and nature and the community that you're with. And you tend to ignore certain annoying things that might be in your foreground, such as the porta potties or the parking situation. What we're aspiring to do here is to address those challenges, but keep the essence of Storm King exactly as it is. It's necessitated by the increased visitation we've seen over the last decade, along with increased programming, which has put significant demand on Storm King's facilities and sites, as well as you know, on the town roads. And I want to emphasize that this is a long-term strategy to secure Storm King for at least the next 60 years. Our goal is to ensure a superlative visitor experience, to protect our assets. And when we talk about our assets, we're talking about people, visitors, artists, staff. We're also talking about the landscape, and of course, we're talking about the art. And we also want to maintain our leadership in the field of art and nature. So as I said, we're making very modest adjustments, discrete new buildings and some reshaping of the landscape, and a significant change in the parking operations, which Paul will describe further. as I conclude, I just want to say that I think that our 3 goals also mesh with what's in it for Cornwall. That by us providing a superlative visitor experience, we're also helping Cornwall have a superlative resident experience. We're reducing congestion on the town roads, and we're also able to serve the community better. It protects all of our collective asset, which is the open space, and it supports our mutual leadership in the field. Storm King is a crown jewel of the Hudson Valley, and its home is in Cornwall. We will carry out these improvements in 2 phases, which Valerie will put in greater context. And as we were determining those phases, we put priority on the improvements that address our most urgent needs. So with that as introduction, I think Valerie can pick up here unless you have any questions for me.
No, that's terrific. Valerie, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having us here tonight. So we're before this board for both site plan approval as well as special permit approval. And as many of you know, Storm King is looking to develop a master plan, which entails 2 phases. We are seeking site plan approval and special permit approval for phase 1. However, we intend to do our seeker analysis on both phase 1 and phase 2. Storm King will come back before this board when they're ready to move forward with phase 2. The details of both phases we'll be discussing in more very shortly, and I'll be turning that over to Paul. But one of the things I wanted to also mention to this board tonight in terms of the seeker analysis, we provided this board an outline of what we're proposing to, the environmental topics we're proposing to do a deeper dive in as part of the overall approval process. And I'm happy to go through those particular topics. I'm happy to take any questions that you have, but I do think that we are undertaking a very thorough analysis of this, and we do take the environmental impacts of any project very seriously. So does anybody have any questions on that? And if not, I can turn it over to Paul, and I'm more than happy to answer questions later on.
Thank you. Thank you. I think what we'll do is listen to you and then possibly go to the consultants and move to the questions from there. So if you don't mind.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
Okay.
Paul.
Sounds good. Thanks, Valerie. So I'm going to be walking you all through the main elements of the master plan concept, and I'm going to be doing this using 3 drawings, an existing plan, a phase 1 plan. Can everyone hear me okay?
Right up your alley.
I
There's
don't
some
know where that voice came from.
Not on
Sorry,
mute,
Paul.
right?
That's okay.
She's officially muted.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to be
And Paul, just
walking you through
you
the
know,
plan. Yep.
Paul, I've allowed you to share your screen as well.
Great, sounds good, thank you. Walking you through the main elements of the master plan concept using 3 drawings, the existing site plan, the phase 1 plan, and the phase 2 plan. Now, if we were in person, these would be large drawings and we could gather around, look at them. Instead, I'm going to share my screen, and you'll see that I'm going to use the full site for orientation, but then I'm going to zoom in to the north and the south of the site, just so that you have a better opportunity to see. And then I'll also be marking up over the screen, pointing out elements as I talk. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and close my video. All right, can everyone see that? Okay, I'm going to make it a bit bigger.
That would be helpful.
So like I said, this is the overall site, but I'll be zooming in to the north portion and then the south portion respectively as I go through each one. If you need me to slow down as I go through it, if it's disorienting at all, just chime in and I will clarify. So
the kid, he's a good kid and everything.
to start, I think it would be helpful to provide just a brief overview of the existing site and art center. So it's a 500-acre site that you can see here up on screen. And it's all about, as Amy mentioned, people experiencing world-class art and sculpture in the landscape. Storm King is currently open to visitors spring, summer, and fall, seeing many of its visitors during fall's leaf season.
Hold on, Paul. Are you reading from something?
I've got some notes that are helping me, yes.
Okay, if you could just go a little bit slower, because when you read, you just tend to kind of zoom along there.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. So visitors, and I'm going to have to slow down because I'm going to mark up as I go now. So visitors currently, and I'm going to flip to the north site, visitors, staff, and service vehicles currently enter from Old Pleasant Hill Road, right here off of Ores Mills. And they park within a variety of parking lots throughout the site. So there's a parking lot here in the north, there's a parking lot here in the south, and there's some smaller lots here and one up the museum building. So currently people enter and they go to a variety of lots throughout the site. It is also currently a pay then park model. So people have to check in at a security booth here that I've just dashed in blue. And so given this model of pay then park, that contributes to some backup along Pleasant Hill Road. So that's important context as we move to the proposed plans. I'm just going to clear my drawings here. As far as the main visitor facilities, there is the museum building up on Museum Hill, which you see now marked in red. This has exhibitions and a shop. There's also a cafe pavilion right here in red that I'm just showing. And there is a bike rental barn here, and the ticket booth, which I just mentioned. There are tram stops and restrooms throughout. From an operations standpoint, staff are currently working out of a variety of buildings on site, including the museum building. Conservation, fabrication, and maintenance functions are performed out of a couple small buildings in the center west of the site, shown here in blue. And tram storage and servicing is in the west of the site, right here. So before we jump into the proposed master plan, it's also important to understand what makes Storm King's landscape so special and appreciated. Simply put, Storm King's landscape is characterized by grassy rooms that are a sort of outdoor museum for sculpture that are framed by the trees around the site and then views of the mountain beyond. So this was all taken to heart when establishing the master plan vision for the site. So the plan you see up front is phase 1 of the plan. I'm going to zoom in now to the north of the site so we can talk through it in a little bit more detail. But before we get into the elements, we wanted to talk through 3 main design principles. The first is about removing cars and traffic from the heart of the site. And we're doing this by consolidating all of the service-intensive uses at the edge of the site with the most direct access possible to the exterior road network. The second design principle is about reclaiming land that is currently used for parking for more opportunities for sculpture and art. Third and finally, to move all parking and new buildings within that tree line that we sort of characterized as a defining feature of the Storm King landscape. So with this new plan, from a parking standpoint, the current south parking lot and north parking lot are removed, and all parking is consolidated in a new lot in the north, which I'm now highlighting in blue. So this is also now shifting to a park then pay model. So cars are able to enter still off Old Pleasant Hill Road into the parking lot, park their car freely. So there's free movement of traffic, no slowdowns for payment. And then visitors are able to walk from their car into a series of small pavilions, including ticketing, canopy shelters, restroom, and information. And all of this is concealed within the tree line of Storm King. So the idea is people are able to park their car, get off on foot, and experience that sort of threshold into Storm King in a sort of slower pace, while not causing any of the traffic backups that are currently happening from time to time. So that's on parking. Now, it's one last note that I'll add is this lot is designed with ample drop-off for coach buses and taxis as we look to incentivize connection to mass transit, including the Metro North train station. From a visitor facility standpoint, as I mentioned, there's a small group of pavilions at entry that help to support visitors both on entry and exit. There is also I'm going to now flip to the south of the site here. There is a small structure that we're referring to as a pond pavilion, which offers shelter, flush restrooms, and small food and beverage to visitors further to the south of the site. And I'm going to flip back up to the north. And the museum building, which again is right here, and the cafe pavilion here are retained within this phase one. From an operational facility standpoint, and I'll mark this up in blue, there is a new administration building here. I've just dashed it in blue, which brings together all staff into a single location. This is still set, so it's buffered from the visitor experience, but it also is close to Orrs Mill Road off Old Pleasant Hill Road to provide direct access for deliveries, visitors, and for staff. Staff park in the lot here, and visitors and accessible spots are at the back of the building. Continuing on the operations, but in the south site, here we have Pleasant Hill Road to the south of the site. I just marked in red, and we have the throughway along the western edge, just for orientation. Now, this plan incorporates a purpose-built conservation, fabrication, and maintenance building to better support the world-class production and restoration work that Storm King does today, as well as streamlining the maintenance of site and landscape. It's sited to the south with direct access to Old Pleasant Hill Road off of Bunny Road. So that reduces the burden of the traffic at the north of the site and provides greater autonomy for these uses. Bunny Road here is reconfigured slightly to facilitate turns off of the nearby bridge. In terms of landscape, I'm going to jump back to the north here. We're still on the phase one plan. The removed south parking, which I'm showing in green here, is simply grassed over to provide new landscape for sculpture. The current north parking, which is here in green, can everyone see my notation in green here?
Yeah.
So that existing north parking lot sits on top of a stream that's been undergrounded. So by removing this parking lot, we're able to daylight the stream that exists. And that's part of a larger wetland mitigation strategy site-wide. The north parking landscape is designed to integrate with its woodland context and to responsibly manage stormwater. Runoff is captured in a infiltration pond to the west of the lot to be filtered before it is reintroduced into the site's natural water system. Back down to the south at the Conservation Fabrication Building, a similar stormwater management strategy is used, including some water detention ponds that are retained and filtered before they're reintroduced into the natural water system. Now I'm going to move on to the phase 2 plan. Again, this is the site as a whole, but I'll talk through the main elements. Now looking again at parking, I'm going to go to the south of the site. So there is potential to add more visitor parking with an additional visitor entrance at Bunny Road. So this is the area that's been identified for potential additional visitor parking. And that would have the same access from Pleasant Hill Road via Bunny Road. Now, back to the north, there is currently a parking lot in front of the museum building, which is going to be retained, but only for very limited use in phase 1. But by phase 2, it can be re-landscaped and will go away completely. All ADA accessibility will be resolved through an existing elevator structure and an improved pathway network and tram system. In terms of visitor facilities for phase 2, Scandrett House, which is at the entry, will be renovated as an information center and museum shop. The museum building will be renovated for improved exhibition space, including a below-grade gallery addition, which you can see at the back here. A new cafe pavilion in the center west of the site, and a new dedicated events building adjacent to the admin building in phase 1, which is all about better facilitating special events. Again, close to the entry for easy servicing. And there is this bike barn, which we referenced here. It will be refurbished for educational programming. And finally, back down to the south, to support that new south parking, there would be a small ticketing and welcome pavilion. The Conservation Fabrication Building will be expanded to house dedicated art storage. And another barn structure, an existing barn structure, will be refurbished for exhibition space. So that covers all of the main elements. Thank you for your patience, and let me know if you have any questions once Mike talks through the traffic and stormwater management in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Paul. That was very well done. Mike?
Sure. I'm gonna share my screen now.
Hit this stop, I think. There you go, Mike.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a progress set of plans that we submitted along with the package that you have. just to kind of orient everybody, this is the same rough site outline that was shown on Paul's nice colored plans, but these are engineering plans, so they're not quite as exciting. So this shows the north area, the work there, the pond pavilion, and then the work down at the southern end of the site. So I just wanted to walk through these really quickly. Paul's kind of explained in detail everything that is involved with the master plan, but just to show it at a little bit larger scale. So this is the proposed administration building that Paul had referenced with its own separate access off of Old Pleasant Hill Road. To the left of this plan is a portion of the north parking lot. So you would come down Old Pleasant Hill Road, enter the north parking lot here. This is the bus drop off and taxi Uber pickup area in this oval shape here. Page down, and then this is the kind of the big chunk of that north parking lot. So this again shows that bus drop off area, all of the parking spaces, and the welcome buildings that Paul had described. So one other thing that I do want to point out here is this Old Pleasant Hill Road. We're looking to return this section of it kind of into a natural state to really separate the vehicular and pedestrian experience at Storm King. So once you park in this lot, everything from this point on as a visitor is a pedestrian experience, or you're on a tram or a bike. So the new access into the remainder of the site will be peeled off and connect to the existing circulation system within Storm King, but provide that separation between pedestrians and vehicles. So we have met once with the town fire marshal with Steve, and we have another meeting scheduled Monday to discuss emergency access kind of throughout the whole site and to each of the proposed buildings. Here you can also see there's a New York State DEC wetland, the bottom of this page, that has been delineated, and DEC has, we have a jurisdictional determination from them on that. There is a little bit of work proposed in this buffer zone, which is part of the reason for the stream daylighting that Paul had mentioned that's going to take place, where it's culverted underneath that north parking lot now. This plan shows the pond pavilion as it's located to the west side of Bunny Lane. The two ponds are here and here. This provides that kind of visitor spot down on the southern end of the site for resting, getting water, whatever the case may be. And then this is the southern end of the site with the conservation, fabrication, and maintenance building with the access off of Pleasant Hill Road, and then improvements to Bunny Lane. So we are in the midst of wrapping up a full traffic study for the entire project that will look at site distances here, impacts to the surrounding roadway network, and we'll go into detail on the access and circulation into the north parking lot. Providing this single point of access here, we're confident that this will handle the traffic and the visitors parking in this lot. I can show you something. Might be a little tough to see here, but this, because there will no longer be visitor access beyond that driveway down Old Pleasant Hill Road, this is really going to be free flow traffic into and out of the parking lot through that, oops, wrong plan, through this single access point. So from this point south, there really won't be any traffic other than a little bit of employee traffic and the occasional deliveries and whatnot within the park. So, and as I said, we'll be submitting a much more detailed set of site plans with our next submission to the town, along with a traffic study and a full stormwater management design report. One other thing I will point out is that all of the new facilities will be served by private wells and septic systems. Those designs will also be incorporated into the next package that you receive. I think that's all I had. Now, if you have any specific questions, this is a full set of site plans. I don't want to, but as I said, their progress, there's a lot of details in them with grading and some utility layout, but I'm not sure that you'd want to get into that level of detail at this point.
But very professional, very well done, and I'll turn it over to our consultants for opinions so that if there are any questions, they can be addressed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen? Oh, Kristen.
All right, now, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
All right. Figuring out this volume thing now that we're on the last applicant. So as kind of the consultants mentioned, the plans are fairly preliminary at this point. So our comments on site plans are really that they just need to be a little bit more developed. And I'm sure that this is a first submission just to kind of orientate the board as a first round, but as they progress, we'll need kind of all of the items that are required in the town zoning code. So bulk tables, parking calculations, title block, existing conditions, and so on and so forth. Those are things to kind of look for before we get into like a public hearing stage of the review. Square footage as well on the buildings, at least on the buildings that are proposed for phase 1 would be helpful to for everyone to review. I'm going to jump into seeker because that's kind of a big part of the submission so far for this month. In terms of seeker, the applicant has provided, I think as Valerie discussed, an outline for an expanded Part 3 EAF. And an expanded Part 3 is probably not something that this board has dealt with a lot, but it is basically just a compilation of the analysis to address a lot of the impacts or potential impacts that have been identified in the EAF. And the applicant has provided an outline for the board to review. And basically what they and what I would be asking the board to do is to kind of review the outline to kind of make sure that everything is in there that that the board is interested in getting a little bit more analysis on. And I think that essentially the outline follows the EAF. It follows all of any of the yes checks in that EAF are provided and are expanded upon in the outline. The only thing that I think the board might take particular interest in are the intersections for the traffic study that's forthcoming. They don't list the particular intersections, but if the board has anyone on the board wants to have input in that regard, they should say that now before they get too deep into the traffic study. And I had a few minor comments on the outline, but for the most part, I believe that it follows the EAF and the outline, and it'll give the board just about everything that they would be looking for in terms of environmental analysis. The first step, of course, in the seeker process is for the board to declare its intent to be lead agency. So we've provided a draft of that notice for you. I provided it, and actually Valerie and I have been going back and forth this week on a couple of changes. So we're going to have a couple of very minor changes to that document, but for the most part, we'd be asking, or the applicant would be asking for the board to declare itself lead agency so that we can circulate that notice with the EAF that was provided.
Okay, is that it, Kristen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Mark? Mark's on mute.
I unmuted myself. Okay, jumping basically to comment 2, 1 just outlined some of the elements that were gone over as part of the initial presentation, but into comment 2, I'll just touch on some of the highlights. As Kristen said, we need to have the set have the normal title block and prepare our information. That's part of a normal submittal. We'll get that, I'm sure, as the drawings progress. 1 for Dominic is a little unique. We've got a 500-acre parcel, 1 integrated site plan with 20 different tax parcels. So how you're going to handle that as far as some methodology of having this all glued together as a single application, I'll leave that to Dominic to deal with. Pleasant Hill Road and Old Pleasant Hill Road, the 2 adjoining roads. Old Pleasant Hill, a portion is a town road, a portion has been already abandoned, and a portion of the abandoned portion, I understand, is now being removed. I'm glad that you're dealing with the fire inspector relative to access through the site, because having a serpentine access to structures is not always the best way to get emergency vehicles that are rather large in size from point A to point B. So although it may be convenient to go through the serpentine with golf carts and small vehicles, take a full aerial ladder truck or full-size pumper or rescue and try to make that trip, it's a different world. So as Mr. LeBlanco would confirm, that's a problem. So please give that attention with Steve. I'm sure he's going to look at it closely with you. As far as the initial portion, if you have indications still of seeking abandonment, I suggest you follow up with the town board on that. I had some brief discussions with the town supervisor, so that's something you should restart the discussions. I also, in looking at the plan and tax data, note what appears to be a Central Hudson parcel going through the property. It's noted on the plans as being an easement. It's noted on the tax records as being a Central Hudson owned parcel, and that turns into an easement. So please have your survey existing conditions verified. I noted that two different ways. One, as notifying all the information on the plan for the source, but secondly, please make sure that you're properly referencing that Central Hudson, what might be a property that's bisecting the parcel. And in fact, the new parking area goes over top of what might be somebody else's land, if in fact that is a Central Hudson parcel. So please double check that. We'll get to the wells and such as Mike indicated as the application progresses and designs progress. I've got some general drawing comments regarding handicapped accessibility and handicap parking and parking space sizes based on the code. I understand the phase 2, phase 1 approach, but also make sure that you address ADA accessibility throughout for both phases. So I'll leave it at that. And you may want to come up with a description or at least a narrative on how you're accomplishing that as part of phase 1 and phase 2. I note a lot of gravel walkways. I'm not quite sure they would qualify as access routes. I'll leave the parking lot alone, other than to note for the planning board's benefit, somewhere along the line, you'll need to make a determination as to how many parking spaces are required for the site, and the balance being those non-paved overflow spaces. You would have to waive the requirement for paving on those gravel spaces because the town code requires that all parking spaces be paved and have drainage. If they're overflow spaces and you deem them as such, I would go on the record having made that determination at some time in the future and allow those to be non-paved. Obviously less of an environmental impact, but they provide the benefit during peak usage periods. At least there's some place for parking to occur.
Excuse me, Mark, is it better to consider that at the front end, or shall we delay that discussion?
I would delay it for now because I think you need to get your arms around what you believe is an acceptable required parking space count.
All right.
And that may take a little more review, but ultimately you should have the required parking paved, which they're showing a portion paved,
right,
and they're showing a secondary area for phase 2 paved. But once you have that number nailed down, then you can determine the balance to be overflow and accept those as non-paved.
Right.
The rest of the comments, I just tried to give the applicant some input on some things I picked up on. Comment 3, as was indicated, I believe by Mike, the traffic impact study is being prepared. Just a heads up that obviously since the access to the site from either end comes off of a county highway, Pleasant Hill Road is Highway 79 and Ores Mills is Highway 20. So it has to go to the county, Orange County Department of Public Works for review in either case. Maybe in that traffic impact analysis, you can include some internal traffic movement plans for vehicle movements through the site. Again, notwithstanding whatever the fire inspector may determine, the board still has the responsibility and opportunity to see the proposed movements through the site and feel comfortable that what you're proposing is in fact workable. So I would suggest you include that as part of your traffic analysis. Comment 4, we're just noting that we haven't done a thorough review of the detail sheets, but I did pick up on some contradictions plan to plan that you could clean up. Erosion and sediment control we're not dealing with at this point. will receive a SWIP, I'm sure, and we'll look at that in the soil erosion plans all as part of one review. It is a very complete package. It's great information, but there's a lot to digest, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more reviews as we move along. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Dominic, we know what you have in front of you, but do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. And I actually want to start off with the traffic report, which we don't have the benefit of yet. I understand that the applicant is working on a traffic study. I think that there's a couple of considerations for the board to keep in mind, and that might be helpful for the applicant as well. If the applicant has not conducted their traffic counts now for existing traffic at the intersections that they're looking at, one difficulty is of course, is that school is currently not in session. So the standard for conducting traffic studies is to include, do it at a time when school is in session, so you make sure that you get the bus counts as part of your existing condition study. In addition to that, I would think that for this particular application, where you're dealing with traffic that occurs not only during the school season, but also during the summer months as well, that traffic counts should be taken during that time if they haven't been done already. This is a potentially long lead time item, a traffic study, because it does require the collection of existing data, and it's something that the board should consider. It will be a significant item for the board to evaluate as part of its seeker review when you get to your decision making in this process. But right now, what's in front of you is an application that I'm sure has been given a number of years of considerate thought. What you're seeing, I'm sure, is the public unveiling of a comprehensive plan for a very significant and a noteworthy addition to the cultural landscape in the Northeast. And so I think that the board's role in reviewing this going forward, of course, is as for site plan review and for special permit. And of course, I think that the board should declare its intent to be lead agency. So that way you can authorize Kristen to send out the notice to all of the other involved and potentially interested agencies, and you can start that process. What that seeker review is going to entail, Kristen mentioned that the applicant is submitting a number of studies up front, and the traffic study set aside for a moment, but they're providing you with a great deal of information to let the board evaluate whether or not there are potential significant adverse impacts associated with this. My recommendation is that you continue to review that information as it comes in, and be able to make a determination when you're ready to do so as to whether or not there are significant and adverse impacts. And I think that the traffic study will be a key element of your review there. I would recommend that the board authorize hiring someone to review that traffic study as well, so that you can have a consultant provide you with information regarding that. I'm sure Mark can provide input on that as well.
Yeah, one other, just if I might, Dominic, on the traffic study, we've run into a situation with other municipalities. This is not the ideal time to be doing traffic counts with the pandemic. There is a very deflated traffic count in most applications. So what we've fallen back onto in many cases is looking at available traffic studies, traffic data from other sources. The applicant is somewhat benefited by the fact, as I indicated earlier, that the two roads that are principally impacted by this application are county roads, and they very well may have some recent traffic data. But as far as actual traffic counts, summer is good, during school periods is good, but during pandemics, not good.
Right.
We have run into this problem of late, kind of an unexpected consequence. But you could get started by reaching out to Orange County DPW and possibly getting some background data to start to formulate the traffic review.
And just to clarify, our traffic counts they were completed before any of this happened. They were done during school, and we actually did a bunch of counts in the fall when Storm King is typically at their busiest season. So the traffic study is further along than I probably gave you the impression of when I was talking through it. So it's just about wrapped up, and it will be submitted with everything else that comes in with the SWIP and the updated
That
site
was
plan.
a
So
very good investment in time.
yes.
Mike, would you want to just take 2 minutes and just kind of review the intersections, or I can pull up the
Sure.
just so that the board knows the number of intersections that.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to give
analyzed.
me just a second.
Well, that is very
I
helpful.
have them up right now, if you'd like me to read them off.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that
Audrey.
would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So it's primary study area intersections are at.
Wait. Who's, I don't know, I can't.
I apologize. This is Adriana Beltrani. I'm a planner with Nelson Pope and Voorhees.
Thank you.
Yes. So the primary study area intersections are Ores Mills Road and Pleasant Hill Road, Ores Mills Road and Station Road, Ores Mills and Old Pleasant Hill, and Ores Mills and Route 32. And the secondary intersections that were studied are Route 32 and Quaker Avenue, Pleasant Hill and Junger Road, Pleasant Hill and Angola and Route 32, and Pleasant Hill and Bunny Road.
Thanks, Adriana.
Thank you.
Thank you. I
You're
couldn't
welcome.
put my hands on it that quickly.
No, that's fine.
Okay, Dominic, did you have anything further to say?
No, I think the only thing for procedurally for the board to consider tonight would be authorizing the sending a notice of intent to be lead agent.
I'd like to get comments from the board members individually if it's possible. Led, do you have any comments?
Yes, I have some comments. The first is that that this is that the Storm King Art Center's expansion is a really good news story for our community, and I'm looking forward to seeing that expansion carried through. But as part of that expansion, certainly it will attract more visitors than it currently does. I mean, I'm sure that that's part of the plan, is to make it an even better museum. I would also say that in a time of pandemic, I can't think of a better museum to visit than a giant outdoor sculpture museum where I can be, as far as I'd like to be from the other visitors. So I think that there's maybe a short-term thing we ought to be thinking about for this summer in terms of Storm King Art Center and traffic flow. But anyway, that's not part of the plan. So that issue of required parking is a huge question to me. And not just the required parking, but also how do we provide signage such that when the parking is full, it's clear to people prior to them all backing up along Ores Mill Road. So that at the time, it's unfortunate that the intersection, and this should be part of that same seeker review, the intersection of Old Pleasant Hill Road and Ores Mill Road is not really conducive to the traffic volumes that we're currently seeing. So I saw in the master plan a large number of actions intended to address those elements which are interior to your operation. And I think that that's wonderful. I really approve of what I was seeing there. I think it's very modern and forward-looking design, and it's going to make the facility itself perform better for years to come. But as part of that, that increased visitor number that might come from such an improvement, I think that the intersection of Ores Mill Road and Old Pleasant Hill Road needs to be fixed. And that really should be part of the plan. Right now, if I can share my screen momentarily.
Just give me a second. Yep, hold on.
The sound effects are really intriguing.
Yeah, I think somebody's got a grandfather clock going pretty good here.
Just give me one moment, Led.
That's fine.
For some reason, I'm not seeing the ability to share your screen. I apologize for that.
Well, I'll just say that if you go into Google Maps or Google Earth and you take a look at the intersection of Orrs Mill Road, Station Road, and Old Pleasant Hill Road, it's not what I would call a conducive to a large volume operation of any kind. These are country lanes which have been adapted and converted and upgraded in some way, but both meet Orrs Mill Road at sort of an adverse angle. I'd also say that if you're bringing traffic from the train station, as you had mentioned a couple of times being desirable, that you're actually doing a hairpin backwards to get into your site as you come eastbound on Orrs Mill Road. And I'm not in any way trying to burden Storm King Art Center with that problem as their sole, sort of the sole participant, but it is true that that intersection needs to be improved if this is ever going to really get resolved. It's just terrible there. And I would say additionally, the signage at Orrs Mill Road and Old Pleasant Hill Road and the signage at Route 32 and Orrs Mill Road, I would ask you to look at that carefully as an opportunity to communicate when the facility is full, and also as an opportunity to help guide the traffic through those transitions so that we don't get people stopping and backing up as they see a small sign and have already gone past, which I've seen that occur at those intersections. And so we have basically a world-class facility with signs, that have, I guess, 3-inch letters or 4-inch letters on them. So it can be hard for those who are not familiar with the facility to find the facility quickly. I know that it's kind of part of the feeling that you've discovered Storm King Art Center when you come upon it, but maybe those days are of discovering it by accident and having that be a happy coincidence. Maybe those days are behind us with this. So that's the main thing I would say that as the town would help us out, would be to examine that intersection and the signage in the most careful way. And also, I'll only take one issue with one other statement made, and that's that engineering plans are in fact the most exciting plans presented. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Mark, I think you'll agree with me on that one right there.
I'm with you on that, Len.
Yeah, okay. So what could be better than traffic counts and parking numbers? But really, that's if we don't end up resolving the parking and traffic issues currently associated with Storm King Art Center as part of this master plan, I think we will have failed. So I think it's got to have our most careful attention. And I think that means drawing the boundaries of the plans that we saw just a little larger so that we see that intersection at Orrs Mill and Old Pleasant Hill Road. Okay. That's what I got.
Thank you, Ed. Mike, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, Bill?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Quinn?
Yeah, I have a few questions, and I'll just dovetail onto what Led said about traffic. I think you need to consider, as part of your traffic plan, diverting traffic further away, maybe as far south as Angola Road on Route 32. I live off of Angola Road. I always come up the back way, up Pleasant Hill Road, but most of the people who visit are going to come up Route 32, and there's no bail point between Angola Road till you get up to Quaker Avenue. So you might want to give that some consideration. As part of this, are you planning demolition of any of the existing buildings? I'm fairly familiar with the site. You've got some maintenance buildings over by George House. You've got Townsend House over by where you're going to put your new Welcome Center. Are some of those buildings going to be demolished, or are they going to be repurposed? Hi, Amy.
So in phase one, the only building that we are slating to demolish is the maintenance building, as you mentioned, that if you come in the sort of extra back way, you see before you see the bike barn. And that's the only building slated for phase one.
Okay. Thank you.
Wynn, are you finished?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, with that, Mary Beth?
I just have one suggestion. Would it be possible to add the intersection of Orrs Mill and Jackson Avenue into that study? because we do have flow that comes 94 and cuts over. If you're talking about the train station, yes, it would be done by taxi or other means of transportation. But I think for the average person, I think that might be helpful to the town and to this board.
Good suggestion.
And that's
Okay.
all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. Is that on the record? I guess, Mike, did you receive that?
Yep, I've got that. Thank you.
Okay. Ken?
I've got one
Sorry?
thing is
Okay.
probably being considered. I'd be amazed if it's not. And that would be the growth of the art center has been rather steep. And I would sincerely hope that we plan properly so that this wonderful plan, and I think it is quite exemplary, will last 5 years and be ready for some more. The second thing I must say, is we've alluded to it several times, it's a world-class facility. And a world-class facility to me means recruiting assistance from not only the town, the county, but also the state. And I think if we're talking about intersections that have to become much more important than they are right now in the near future, then toward whatever means we can politically, we need to get some good promotion and backing to get that taken care of with some facility and some money that maybe isn't at the town disposal.
Good, Ken. I reflect everyone's views. I think that it was a very professional presentation, and I don't have any questions. I do have 2 points, though. One, I'd like to take a motion for the declaration of lead agency.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. And the second, Mark, per your suggestion, maybe at the front end, we should consider allowing for the hiring of the transportation consultant so that any discussions could be including someone
Let
from
me check.
representing the board.
Let me check on some consultants and make a recommendation.
Okay, could I have the authorization of the board for Mark to do that? Motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go, Mark. Okay, so we can move this as reasonably as possible. I do have one question. When did you want to start the construction and work on this? Amy? Sorry?
Our answer might be slightly different now than it was maybe 6 weeks ago. But we are presently planning that with a timely approval, we are ready to break ground as soon as we clear the bat habitat restriction period.
It's terrific. Okay, well, I'm satisfied. I hope we can expedite that as much as possible. With that, are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. It was excellent.
And thank you for sticking with us for this long period of time. Virtually makes it so much harder. And we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Very good. Thank you, Amy. And thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, Dominic, I don't know if we have anything else.
Not on my agenda.
Okay, if anyone else has an agenda, then you're not on it. So we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was really a good meeting. Dominic, great job. Great job.
Dominic, thank you so much for
Thank
enabling all this.
Good job,
Oh,
Dominic.
no, it's good to see you all. You know,
Thank you.
You too.
John, nice seeing you. Bye-bye.